Okay, I've got a couple of slides I want to go over some data basics. First of all, for this class in particular, what makes data good data? Some of the things that we're going to be looking for are high volume, just a lot to work with. Consistent variables, not a lot of no data or null values. Multiple variables to work with so that we can be comparing and contrasting, looking for patterns, relationships, distributions. Very detailed, but aggregatable. And anything continuous can always be aggregated. You can sum things, etc. You want to make sure that units are clear and available, and that the meaning of all your variables is clear. So you're going to be needing some kind of metadata file if everything's abbreviated. Looking for temporal richness. So, not data from just 1 year, but maybe you have, a 200-year record or a 50-year record or something like that. And again, for every year or every month of a year or every, day, if it's just monthly data, for example. And then, making sure that you know the origins of the data. Does it have a metadata file? Is the history documented? Do you know what the sources are? Are the sources trustworthy? Okay, so how is data basically organized? You guys have worked with GIS. We have rows that contain the unit of analysis. These can be units, years, month, census block polygons, or stream segments, observations. Those are the rows. The columns, or like in ARC, they're called the fields. These are the measured variables. They can be continuous or categorical, numeric or text, but these are the changing kind of dependent variables. You might be saying, thank you, that's obvious, but it isn't that clear. And the data working in Tableau in particular can get pretty complicated. One thing to know is that Tableau is optimized for row-oriented data. This means tall data sets. And so if you look at this example on the left, we have an ID, and then we've got a gender classification for what's probably a student, the school that they attend, and then 3 columns that contain their test scores. Now, this is one way to organize a table, but Tableau is going to be optimized if you duplicate the student and create a row or an observation for each one of the subjects. So here we've added a subject field, and we're duplicating this information to create a unique row for each, each observation. And there are ways to do this automatically. You can pivot tables in Excel, and Tableau has a data optimization tool that will help you format your data automatically. Well, with some input from you, of course. Okay, so watch out for formatting hazards. So in the upper left here, California is an extra row. You want your data to just have one header, one row that contains the header or the description for each one of your columns. So in this case, we want to create a new field and put this kind of subtitle in its own field. Titles like this just mess everything up. Delete them. You also want to delete things like subtotals. That's not a true part of the data. It's something that's been aggregated and added later. So you just want to strip your data down to the basics. Tableau can do the summing for you automatically. So it's something that would end up getting added into your observations, and it's going to skew your data. Okay, so this is a really common look for an Excel spreadsheet, right? It's got multiple titles. So let's just talk about some of the things that are wrong with this data set and that are going to trip us up if we bring this into Tableau to do some analysis. Taking a look at it, we've got titles and subtitles. We've got some information on where the data came from and how old it is. It's one worksheet out of multiple, which is fine. You can designate which sheet you want to work with in Tableau. This is going to be a problem. We've got kind of a tree structure here. So again, you need one header for each column. You've got to clean this up and simplify, and if it means duplicating, you need to duplicate. Maybe you create some, like a legend or some kind of a key for yourself. Spaces, get rid of those. These subtitles, you need to get rid of these. These need to become columns. So what you're going to do with this, these subtitles, these are variables. So these need to be put into columns and spread out. So this table is going to become much taller. And we're going to end up with more variables this way, but we're also going to be duplicating and making the table a lot longer than it would have been normally. Highlighted cells, that's not something that'll be read by Tableau, it'll just be ignored. So just be aware. I don't see any subtotals, so that's good. But you would go through and manually remove all those so that they don't get added into your sums. It's really easy to edit field names in Tableau. It's pretty user-friendly in that everything's got a drop-down menu where you can find options like that. You can reformat, just like in Excel, reformat your cells or reformat your data by just clicking here and just turn it into a number or a string if it is. But sometimes data will come in and it'll be, a number will be called a string and you want it to be read as a number. So you need to check these. In this case, we do have string data, but if this were, just a measurement of some kind, you'd want to make sure you're changing it to a number. And that'll change up here too. This will change to a hashtag. All right, what else? Text to columns. There's other ways to adjust your data in Excel. We've got kind of a clunky field here that contains the day, the month and the year, the time, and the time zone. You can use under the data tools, text to column tool, and it allows you to delimit based on whatever you need to do. So I broke this up into 2 steps and first did a space delimiter, and it gives you a little preview here, and it created 3 fields for me. And then I went in and deconstructed the date, ran it a second time, and instead put in a backslash. And so I ended up with my month, my day, and my year as 3 separate columns. It's not always super straightforward. Sometimes the formatting comes out a little bit weird, so you have to go through and kind of reformat the values after you run it, but it's pretty slick. Okay, and then finally, this is the way you're going to see the data in Tableau. All dimensions, which is our discrete data, like the qualitative things, categories, names, dates, geographical data, they're going to be in blue. These are the ways we kind of summarize, I guess, the categories we use to summarize our data. Dimensions do affect the level of detail in your plot. It's good to keep that in mind. This is an awesome explanation of how data is dealt with in Tableau. Measures are green, and measures are the continuous data, things that can be, guess what, measured. So measures are the numeric stuff, quantitative values. Measures can be aggregated, and Tableau does that by default, usually aggregates it to a sum. All you have to do is drop this down. You can change it to median, standard deviation. There's all sorts of different ways that you can show your data, but it is automatically a sum. I guess that's all I really need to say about that. So you need to think about it. If you bring your data in, and here we have a quantity field, and for the rows we've brought in the sum of sales. So we have sales on the Y and the quantities on the X. By treating quantity as a measure, we're telling Tableau that it's a continuous field. And that's assuming that there is a quantity of 3.5. There may be a quantity of 1, 2, 3, 4, but if there isn't something in between, then it's incorrect to connect the sales amounts with a line. If these are discrete things, if we sold 3 of something or 8 of something, and there isn't such thing as a 7.5, then this is incorrect, and you need to change your measure to a dimension, and it's just a simple matter of, dropping down this little menu that's right here and just choosing dimension. It's really straightforward. But then you can see that Tableau automatically updates the plot to a bar chart, which is more appropriate for something that is discrete and categorical. So think of the dimensions are always in blue, they're discrete entities, and then the measures are the continuous ones, and you'll see those drawn in green. These things are called pills, by the way. They kind of look like a weird pill. So you drag your quantity pill to the columns. All right, that's it for kind of the basics of data in a nutshell. If you have any questions, let me know.